Hello, everybody. In this episode, we're going to be reviewing episode 6 titled The Madness of Rudolf Hess from the Netflix docu-series titled Hitler's Circle of Evil. And, well, last episode, we left off on Rudolf Hess and how Hess was basically being outcasted. I thought he was going to make his way back into Hitler's inner circle, but he actually ends up casting himself both symbolically and literally and physically away from the group, as you'll see in this breakdown of this episode, which to me is crazy. And see, the problem with using the word madness or crazy or lunatic or basically any of those words like, yo, that's crazy, or the craziness of this, is that craziness can have two meanings. One of them is like a bad meaning. It's like you're illogical, you're completely delusional, you're not in touch with reality. You may be mentally sick. And the other one is like basically you're a genius, right? You're not in touch with what's normal because you're far superior than that and you're awesome and great. And you're crazy in a way that you're a game changer, you're a trailblazer, right? And I thought it was going to be that meaning in this episode, but in this episode, the madness of Rudolf Hess actually implies the not in touch with reality, the delusional, the bad, let's say the bad kind of crazy, right? There's a good crazy, there's a bad crazy. This is the bad crazy. This is it just didn't get you anywhere crazy, right? So we're at around 1938, 1939, and Germany's basically trying to have like a full out total war. And well, again, the historians, the narrators keep on insisting that there's all this betrayal, that all of these people are betraying each other in the Third Reich. Hess and Bormann, Hess is out, like I mentioned, Bormann is in. And Hess, throughout this whole time, I guess he's just socially being excluded. He's still retaining his title of Deputy Führer, which is basically like second in command of the Nazi party. But I don't even know why he has this title if he actually has no control or no power or no influence over anybody. So I guess it's just a title that stuck with him since 1923. So we are on April 29th, 1939 at the Reichstag, which is like the German government office. And Goering and Hess are there. And they say that Hitler at this point, he's so in control of everything. America and Britain are like, you better not invade Germany. And Germany's just like, Hitler's just mocking the British and the Americans. And he wants Poland back to the fatherland. He wants Poland back to Germany. And he basically says in this speech that Germany is the victim of foreign invasion, right? So he wants to get like all of this control back. Goering at this point, like he has always been, and they repeatedly mention it in this episode, Goering is nervous. He's nervous about invading. He doesn't think that Germany can fight a war on two fronts, on the eastern and the western front, right? But Hess, this is kind of confusing because they say Hess knew it was the wrong war, because instead of invading Poland and then invading the Soviet Union, where they mentioned that Poland is like a stepping stone towards invading Russia or the Soviet Union at the time, which would ultimately then bring about France and Britain declaring war on Germany, and they would have to fight a war on two fronts, which they end up doing. But then they say that Hess can't influence. He doesn't have Hitler's ear. And basically, there's this funny thing where they mentioned that Hess would bring his own food to the Werkhof, and not, receive Hitler's food at the Werkhof. So maybe like it was kind of like a paranoia or just a preference. They basically describe Hess as this weird guy who's like eventually gets into astrology, horoscopes. He was always into magic with a K and occultism. Which like many people are into that, but okay, if you say that's weird, then whatever, it's like, okay, since you're a historian, you're not weird, but all right. And they say that Hess just has a lot of money, so he can spend his time doing this. They never really mentioned, or at least as far as I can remember, where he gets his money from. Maybe he comes from a wealthy family. Um, and they say that at one point, one of his, like, one of the people that's working for him comes in and walks in on him trying to use mind control over a chair or something like that. So they basically just draw him out as this like weird guy. Um, and they talk about the Reich Chancellor and how Hess is not invited, or the Reich Chancellery. He's not invited to a lot of things. Also, when they plan the Poland invasion, the Polish invasion, he's not invited there. Oh yeah, here the Reich Chancellery. He's not invited to talk about the invasion of Poland. And again, Poland is a stepping stone to Russia. But yeah, the East will bring up the West. So this is the Goering thing that he talks about. So Germany is going to have a two-sided war. And Goering kind of distanced himself from Hitler at this point, I guess. Hess wants England, so he wants to talk to Lord. He ends up talking to a Lord Buxton, to stop supporting Poland. So he's trying to do like these backroom deals. And Goebbels offers reasons to invade Poland, and with propaganda in English saying that the Germans in Poland are being attacked. So he raises anti-Polish feeling in Germany, which is false. But the German people believe it because Goebbels has a monopoly on the media. So then at this point, on August 31st, 1939, something happens known as the Gleiwitz incident, where a German radio station gets attacked on the border between Germany and Poland. And it's staged by Himmler and his SS troops dressed as Polish people. And bodies from concentration camps are actually put out there so they can be viewed as, oh, these were the German and the Polish attacked the Germans, right? To make it look as a Polish attack. And Goering is like, it's the end of Germany, right? Because on September 1st, 1939, the Luftwaffe, which is Germany's air force, launches basically bombs on civilian targets, and World War II officially starts, right? So, yeah, the Kriegsmarine, also the warships also bomb, and they take over Poland, they take over Polish territories, and these Polish territories get signed into German control by Hess, and Hess is cool with it. So Hess is working for the Nazi party still. He's doing his bit. But I guess there's all these like emotional complexes going on with the guy. And then 2 days later, Britain declares war on Germany. So I found this to be a little bit interesting because I was like, how did that order go? Because at this point, we all know that on September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. Then on September 3rd, 1939, 2 days later, the United Kingdom and France both declare war on Germany in response to the invasion of Poland. 3 days later, on September 6th, 1939, get this, South Africa declares war on Germany. It's like, what? And then on September 10th, 1939, Canada declares war on Germany. April 9th, 1940, Germany invades Denmark and Norway. No official declaration, just invasion. May 10th, 1940, Germany invades Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Again, no official declarations. June 10th, 1940, Italy declares war on France and the United Kingdom. Remember that Italy was with Mussolini. June 2nd, 1941, Germany invades the Soviet Union in Operation Barbarossa. Formal declaration. Oh no, it begins without a formal declaration. December 7th, 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. December 8th, 1941, United States and United Kingdom declare war on Japan. December 11th, 1941, Germany and Italy declare war on the United States, and the United States reciprocates by declaring war on Germany and Italy. So it was like literally all-out war here. Get this, in 1942, Brazil and other Latin American countries declare war on the Axis powers. In 1943, Italy surrenders and declares war on Germany. So after Mussolini's fall, the new Italian government switched sides. And in 1945, the final Axis holdouts declared war on by various allied nations. May 8th, 1945, Germany surrenders, and August 15th, 1945, Japan surrenders. So I found that order to be interesting because it was like a domino effect, right? Kind of like what's happening right now with Taiwan and China, or Ukraine and Russia, right? Where at any moment something happens and these guys are going to declare war, and then these guys are going to declare war, and then they're going to reciprocate, and then it's going to be like all out war, right? Again. So this is how it happens. So Goering is like, it's the end of Germany, September 1st. Goering's predictions come true because Britain declares war on Germany 2 days later. But he's like, whatever, right? Like Hitler's doing his thing. He knows best. Britain doesn't stop Germany in 5 weeks. So Germany, as you guys can probably know, or you can tell, Germany makes a quick advance, right? Especially with the Blitzkrieg. Like Germany just takes over Europe in a matter of months, right? Okay, so Goering is the hero. Himmler unleashes the SS to crush any resistance and targets the Jewish people and the undesirables, they say, to what eventually would become the Holocaust. Sorry. And Hitler's plans so far are going good. Now, on November 8th, 1939, we have another incident called the Beer Hall bombing, which I didn't know about, in Munich. So in Munich, they would gather to basically like commemorate, they say, or like celebrate, but not really celebrate the failed push, the failed coup attempt that they had back in 1923, the Nazi Party when they were small. Hitler gives a speech, but it's foggy. And he's told that he can't fly, so he needs to take a train. So he needs to cut his speech short. And 13 minutes later, after he leaves, a bomb explodes, kills 8 people. And they say it's a what if moment because it would have killed Hitler because the bomb, I guess, was right behind Hitler. But since Hitler left, he didn't die. And, again, one of those what if moments on November 8th, 1939. And they say, yeah, we don't really know why it's not that known. Nobody really talks about it. I guess nobody really cares. And being November 8th, it is in Scorpio season. So maybe that's why it stays like hidden. Hess stages an elaborate ceremony. Again, all throughout this episode, they're casting him out, and he's trying to find his way back in, but he's also going crazy. And Goebbels also turns the attack into an advantage. He blames the nefarious British Secret Service, they say, but they say it's a lie. The bomb was actually planted by a German named Georg Elser, who he believed Hitler was just leading them to war. They weren't doing anything like to regain their pride or whatever. And this looks bad for Himmler because he's in charge of security, of Hitler's security. So he beats up the guy, and that's basically it. Like, he doesn't get any other consequences as far as we know. April 9, 1940, Goering and Hitler lead the next wave, which in this case, as we know, as you just heard, it goes Denmark, Norway, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Belgium, and France in 6 weeks. In a month and a half, they take over 6 countries. And then Dunkirk happens in France, which were the British up in northern France fighting the Germans. And they were basically being, pushed out due to Germany's efficiency in the Blitzkrieg. Right, so we have the fall of France, like a surreal moment, right, where Hitler enters Paris, and there's a picture of Hitler and the Eiffel Tower right behind him, right, like surreal moment, like what? And this is like Goering's and Hitler's peak, right, because they're at the top. Goering gets he gets named the Reich Marshal, which is like the highest honor, I guess, in France, and he has his spoils of war. He takes a lot of French stuff back to Germany, so he basically plunders all the things, he steals them, and they get found out later after World War II in Germany. Like, Goering took them and he was hiding them in Germany. So again, Hess is out of Paris, he's not there, but Albert Speer, the architect, he is there, Hitler's confidant now, an architect, and he says that he writes in his diary that Hitler tells him that Hess is a drag. So here we have proof that Hitler actually didn't like Hess that much that he says Hess is just hard work. He's always coming to me with complaints. And I do a lot of retrospection or introspection here, and I think about the fact that Hess is a Taurus, so he was basically always coming to him with negative stuff and maybe like deep stuff, and Hitler didn't really want to hear none of that. And they keep talking about how the pressure is getting to Hess, and Goering gossips that Hess is trying to get, like I guess he does some voodoo stuff to see if the letters that Hess gets are good luck or bad luck. Um, and Hitler's just like, yeah, I hope, I never die, so the party doesn't get, so the party doesn't go to Hess because Hess is just like a mess. Um, okay, anyway, 3 weeks after the French surrender, um, the Germans launch against England in the Battle of Britain, but the Royal Air Force holds out, and the bombings fail to weaken Britain. So this is where Germany or Goering's shortcomings are noticed, and they say he's never been to Staff College. I was like, what is Staff College? I guess it's like a war college. So they say basically Goering doesn't really know what he's doing, and the reputation here flops for Goering. And then Hess starts to form his plan. So this is basically where they get into the madness of Hess. And I'm going to be talking about what I think about all this after I talk about the points of the episode. So Hess is an experienced pilot. He flew in World War One, and he flies a two-pilot plane by himself. Hitler wants to invade Russia, and Hess wants to fly to Britain. I don't know what that has to do, the fact that he wants to invade Russia. Oh, yeah. Well, basically, Hess knew that they could. See, everybody had different ideas of what to do, but Hitler did whatever he wanted, right? So Hess's idea is like, you're going to invade Russia eventually, so you can't fight again, like during two wars on two fronts, right? Or a war on two different fronts. So let's make peace with Britain, and then let's ally ourselves with Britain and fight the Russians, right? That was basically like Hess's idea. So he wants to fly to Britain. He wants to meet up with Churchill and sue for peace and get back into Hitler's inner circle, right? So we go back to August 1936, which were the Olympics in Germany, where he met a Scottish aristocrat, the Duke of Hamilton, who was also a pilot. And I think in May 1941, Hess visits Hitler for the last time. They don't know, nobody really knows what they talked about. There's a conspiracy saying that Hitler knew of the plan, but there's no evidence of that. So then 6 days later, after meeting Hitler for the last time, or the last time he was going to see Hitler, they say the most bizarre episode of World War II happens, where he leaves home, his wife, his kid. He sends a letter to Hitler explaining what he's doing. On May 10th, 1941, he flies to Scotland, and he lands in the south of Glasgow, in Scotland. So they say that he didn't even he wasn't even able to land, so he had a parachute out for the first time. So they're just like, yo, this is the deputy Führer, the second in command of the Nazi party in the middle of World War II, and he's just parachuting into the farmland of Scotland, trying to negotiate peace with the British government. So it's just madness, right? That's what they call madness. So a farm worker, basically like talks to him. He offers him tea. They say like a good British. And Hess at this point, he's like, I'm a German and I want to talk to the Duke of Hamilton. I've come to negotiate. He gets arrested, and he thinks that they say that he thinks that it's like a feudal system where the dukes still have power, but they don't. It's not practical like that anymore. That weekend, Hitler's at the Berghof in his barbarian mountainous retreat, and it's Sunday morning. Hitler gets a letter, and he's super pissed. He starts asking Bormann like all these questions, like how come nobody stopped him, like what's going on, and Bormann doesn't have the answers for Hitler. Goebbels tells Bormann that nothing can be done at this point, that there are some things that just can't be spinned. And Goebbels writes in his diary that Hess is basically crazy and it's embarrassing for the Nazi party. In German radio, it says that Hess is crazy, yes, that he died and he becomes a non-person. So no one's supposed to talk about Hess anymore. But the British back in England, they laugh at all this. They publish like in the newspaper title saying Hess flees from Hitler. Um, and Hess is taken to the Tower of London. He wants, this is where he say he wants an alliance to battle or to fight against the Russians. And just around that day, I think, or around that time, uh, there's actually a Blitzkrieg bombing where more than like 1,200 people are killed in England. So Churchill is like, they say Churchill is in no mood to talk peace. Ilse, which is Hess's wife, gets interrogated and she appeals to Eva Braun. Bormann changes his kids' names, which were Rudolf and Ilse, because they were his Rudolf Hess and his wife were the godparents of Bormann's kids. He changes his kids' names legally or by court order, and Bormann is rewarded. The deputy Fuhrer title is abolished, and Goering and Goebbels are like, no, but basically Bormann makes his way as head of the chancellery. So he has made it. He's basically like now very important. I don't know if he's second in command of the Nazi party, but he's very important. Yeah, the person that interrogates Ilse Hess's wife is Bormann, I believe, or at least that's how they depict it in the video. And Hess is moved outside of London. He feels lonelier than ever. He tries to commit suicide by throwing himself over the banister at this like government building, and he fails at that too. He only breaks his leg, and they say that that probably was one of his lowest moments ever. So Hess will remain in prison for life, and he writes a bunch of letters to basically say like, you know, I'm sorry that this happened, and I'm sorry that I failed, you know, the German people and all this stuff. So what do I think of all this? This episode just seems bizarre. You know, they were talking about how when he jumped out of the plane and he parachuted onto that farmland, that was the first time he had done it. That seems like a very tourist thing to do. Like, you know, brute, like, you know, like an ogre, like you just do things. And then they were like, it was miraculous that he survived. Yeah, I mean, maybe he figured it out. I'm pretty sure he figured it out. It was his first time, and I'm guessing that his tourist mind gave him this idea, this very fixed set idea. And it's like if a tourist has this idea, is very fixated on an idea, it's almost impossible for that tourist to retract and not do it. Like they're gonna get it done. And his idea was basically to get there, but he failed to see that, you know, he failed to see everything else that was going on around him, which was the war. And this is my problem now with Nazi Germany up to this point, because I kind of started talking about how they were pretty harsh on them from the beginning, and I still do think that the historians were harsh on them on the you know, from the beginning. I mean, I think there's a turning point where Himmler and Goering assassinate Rome, and then, you know, like all these other murderous things start to happen, like when they kill, I think the SS troops, or they kill a group of people that were against him. Yeah, Rome's men, and they started getting murderous. Also with the whole Jewish and, you know, like the people that were not like them idea. Yeah. But besides that, I don't think they were doing anything wrong in the beginning. Everything they were doing is kind of criminal, is outside the law, because they were talking about, you know, overthrowing the government and getting into power. And I think it's fascinating to see how they accomplished that, right? It's fascinating to see people, you know, work towards an objective that is a big objective, like in this case, total control or power, or like political stuff. It's fascinating to see the rise of these people. For example, House of Cards, right, with Frank Underwood. It's fascinating to see how he manages to get to be the president, right? But my problem here is the problem that I also have with House of Cards, is the problem that you could even say I have with like Donald Trump. Once you get into power, once these people get into power, it's not that they don't get anything done, or it's not that they don't know what they're doing. It's just that it's really hard to know what it is that should be done, right? Like I was figuring out The Walking Dead's Rick Grimes leadership style, and I figured that what he does is he actually gets in touch with the situations that are happening, with the vibe, and he just basically states what is already evident and obvious, right? He doesn't try to boss people around. He doesn't try to get his way. He's a leader because he just says what is already evident, right? Like if the group needs to get food because they're starving, he'll say, "Hey, we need to get food." And everybody listens because it's evident, excuse me, because it's obvious that that's what needs to be done. So he knows how to read a room, and he knows how to react and respond to it correctly, in line with it. He knows how to flow with it, right? So what I think would be, all of this war stuff doesn't make sense to me. And what comes to mind is the Sherlock Holmes movie by starring Robert Downey Jr., the second one, where he battles Moriarty. And Moriarty's plan is to start a World War II, or a world war. I think they don't call it World War II in that movie, they call it a world war, where Moriarty is an entrepreneur, he's a businessman, and he's in charge of the weaponry that both sides are going to need for the war. So he's going to be a very wealthy person at the end. And again, there were people, I know there were Illuminati, Freemason people behind the Nazi party. I'm almost positive that there had to be, because all of these decisions that they're making, right? Like invade all of these European countries, invade France. Now let's go get England. We want Russia. It's like, whoa, like you already achieved a great thing. You're already in charge of Germany, and I would say, you know what, if you want that Eastern territory, that Western territory in, I think, Czechoslovakia, if you want parts of Poland, if you want, okay, fine. But then when they start to invade France, I mean, France is just like, and France it's a surreal moment, because you could say, Hitler and the Eiffel Tower behind Hitler. Like you could say, yeah, you got France. Wow, what an achievement. But like, what are you gonna do with it? You just sack the country, like Goering plunders and steals French things. Like what? Like it's hard to know what to do once you're in power, I believe. I've never been in power, or like in a high position of power, but I think, what I've seen so far in these depictions is that, people will fight to achieve power, and then once they get to power, they don't really do much, or they just do worse than the people before them. Like in House of Cards, when Frank Underwood gets to be the president, he doesn't really do anything. He wants to make like this job, America Works, he calls it America Works program, where he tries to give jobs to people. And I think that program even fails, or it's not as successful as he wanted it to be. But that's it. That's pretty much it. Like, and it's like the Nazi party gets into power, you have like total control, and then you just start invading countries. What are you doing, right? Like what's your end game plan here, right? Are you trying to take over the world? Are you just trying to take over Europe? Because when they declare war on America, it's like, were you going to go all the way across the Atlantic and fight the United States, all of America? Like what's your end game, because I think getting to power is one thing, but then actually being in power is a completely different thing, right? And I think that's where it really shows. I think the best thing to do is kind of like Rick, right, from The Walking Dead. That's why I spoke on his leadership style in this episode. Is just kind of to go with the flow, right? And that's where you see great leaders really shine, not like Gandhi or Nelson Mandela, or they say John F. Kennedy, right, or Martin Luther King, like leaders that go with the flow, that are able to detect what's going on. They're able to read the room, read the landscape, the political, cultural landscape of the moment, the psychology of people, and are able to just basically say what is already evident, right? They're able to put in words that those abstract ideas and feelings that are in people's heads and hearts already, right? I think that's what you need to do. So far, that's the best I've got for leaders, right? Because what the Nazi Party started doing here is not really in line with what I believe the people wanted at that time, unless all the people really wanted an invasion. But throughout these episodes, they consistently say how Goering is against it, right? And Goering was a socialite, so I'm pretty sure a lot of people were against war. Hess was against war, right? So who's pushing this agenda, right? Who was pushing the total war agenda, in 1939 in Nazi Germany, right? Was it just Hitler? Because if it was just one guy, I mean, Hitler became that voice, that leader that, was able to read the situation and react accordingly and say what was evident, but for a few, I believe, powerful people, right, at that time, or a lot of German people, but maybe they didn't really know what they were getting themselves into long term, right? Because Goering, they say consistently, like, Goering knew that that was bad, that it was basically the end of Germany, which it was, right? We all know how that all ended. Um, but yeah, I'm just ranting here. So what Hess ends up deciding to do here, I believe, was an attempt, or his intention was to kind of, yeah, I guess he was mad. He was probably thinking that he could get back on Hitler's good side. He was thinking that he could achieve peace when it was all out war, which to me is ridiculous. Like, that's exactly the excuse me, the opposite of reading the room, right? That's and reacting accordingly to the situation. That's the opposite of this leadership style, which I'm talking about. Because you can't see that it's all out war, and you somehow get it in your head that you're going to go out there and negotiate peace with Britain while while Britain is being attacked by the Nazis. Like, that's not going to happen, right? And it's funny the way in which he got there. Like, he parachuted, but yeah, I gotta say, like, and me as a Taurus, kind of disappointing to see Tauruses do things like this. But again, to me, it's that idea that was probably there, like, fixated, like, because he left his wife and his kid for this. So, or his kids, I don't know if he had kids or just a kid. They just show one kid in the video. But in order to to be able to do that, you really need to be convinced, and I believe he was super convinced of this. But nobody, and maybe it was the fact that he kept it a secret because Hitler was mad and nobody knew about it. So maybe if he would have talked to somebody about it, somebody would have been like, no, like, what the hell are you thinking? And he may have been like, okay, he may have thought twice about it, he may have not done it, right? But since he didn't talk to anybody about it, I don't think he tried to keep it a secret. But I just think he was so disconnected from everybody at this point, probably. Um, but yeah, that's my opinion on the madness of Rudolf Hess. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.